CJ, you good to go? Okay. Smithfield Town Council, October 18th, 2021. Madam Clerk, will you please lead us in the prayer and the pledge? Roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Open forum pursuant to Rhode Island 42-46-6. Is there anybody in the council chambers that would like to be heard during open forum tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
John, the list.
Oh, we have a list. Sarah Funya. Okay. Just state your name and address, and then free to have you have the floor.
Perfect. My name's Sarah Fournier. I'm a resident at 167 Sales Hill Road in North Smithfield, Rhode Island. I actually I have letters for all of you. I tried finding your email addresses online today and was unable to find them. I believe I found Mrs. O'Hara's and did send it to her as well. I'm here to oppose the amendment that's being brought for the motorized ATVs. I have started a petition, and I have 202 signatures from other tax-paying citizens in the town that are also in opposition to this. I am a direct neighbor to the person who is a disturbance in the town. The child that is riding the ATV rides during reasonable hours of the day, stays on his own property, so I don't feel that we need to increase a noise ordinance for this purpose.
Thank you.
That's all I have. And who would you like me? Do you want me to hand them to you individually?
Yeah, why don't you just hand it to the clerk, and then we'll make sure that we all get a copy of it. Thank you. Case? I'm sorry. Todd Case. I apologize.
My name is Todd Case. I'm the property owner and taxpayer of 169 Sales Hill Road. I am the reason for that amendment or whatever to be brought before the board. All right, I want to make some points clear. First off, all right, my son is underage. He's been riding in my yard, private property, being videotaped and or pictures taken by my neighbor, who's an adult male. And I believe he shared those videos with other adults, namely the board. All right? No, it's not true. In the papers it said, video seen by.
We won't get into a big back and
Yeah.
forth, but suffice to say we didn't see it.
Okay, you did not. Okay,
Correct.
so that, I had a real problem with that. All right? The cops did tell him to delete those pictures more than once. All right? So they did confront him 2 times that I know of, saying he can't do that, to which he still did anyways. All right? Cops told us we are not in the wrong. My son did not do anything wrong. He rode his ATV that he bought on our property at reasonable times of the day. He didn't start before 9 o'clock at night. He didn't end at 8 o'clock at night. He did it reasonable times, and if sometimes it was only 5 minutes and the cops were there. All right, I screamed at Paul Soares, whatever his last name is, no disrespect intended, for taking videos of my underage son. And I would do it again in a heartbeat, because that isn't right. That is why I screamed at him. That's why I cursed at him. He'd never once, since I've owned that property, come over to try and talk to me directly. Not once. There's a bunch of things that are misrepresented in his communications to the board and or the paper, whoever he spoke with. And it's wrong. It's false. You know, he never tried to communicate with me. How did he try? By putting up a no trespassing sign the day I confronted him for taking the first set of pictures and videos of my son on my property. I think this amendment is gonna be wrong, because what? It's gonna correct an issue today for all the kids down the road? Really want you to think about the implications of this long-term, not just short-term. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kevin Blaze? Just state your name and address, sir, then you
Yeah.
can begin.
Yep, Kevin Blaze, 64 Greenville Road, North Smithfield, Rhode Island. So I want to oppose this amendment because I can't see the difference of changing the noise ordinance for someone riding an ATV or a dirt bike or something on their own property at a certain time, but my neighbor can run a leaf blower from 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday or Sunday, which is about the same exact noise that's happening with the ATV and dirt bikes. I can't see how we're amending one thing is okay and the other thing is not okay. I think they all should be the same. And that's my point on this, where I think it should be opposed, not opposed. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Lauren? Case.
My name is Lauren Case. I am a resident of 35 Holmes Road, North Attleboro, Massachusetts. I am here as Zachary Case's mom and his attorney. I am licensed in both Massachusetts and Rhode Island, just so we know that. First off, I've had a chance to look at the police reports, and one of the things that really concerned me was that in the newspaper, it said that multiple residents complained about my son riding on his father's property. Well, I looked at the police reports, and the only person who has complained is Paul Soares. So, point number one. Also, Paul Soares even complains about previous owners of that property who I believe ran a business out of there and had diesel trucks. He also complained about the work being done on power lines. That's kind of a necessary evil, if you're not. But my main concern is that I don't know if any of you have children or grandchildren, but someone is taking videos and pictures of my underaged son. And if it continues, I will be filing harassment charges. Thank you.
Thank you. That's everybody on the list, but if anybody else wants to get up and speak, you're welcome to it. State your name and address, please.
Sandra Soares, 171 Sales Hill Road. I had no intention to speak tonight. My husband is not here. He's out of town. I just want to make a point that Mr. Case is not telling the truth. His first encounter with Paul was when Paul walked towards his property line, still on our property, and he came bounding over and calling him a very rude name that I'm not going to repeat. And he screamed, "Stay away from my kid, don't talk to my kid." And Paul said, "Can we have a conversation? Stay away from my kid, stay off my property, don't talk to my kid." Turned around and walked away. So that was the one time the first time that they met face to face. There has been another time when they did speak. Well, he spoke, Paul didn't. Yes, Paul did take a video, and yes, the police did come over and tell him that it was against the law and to delete it, and my husband deleted it when the cops stood there. Excuse me, the police stood there. So I just want you to know that he's not telling you the truth.
No, it's all right. Okay. All right, we have, sir?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Mitchell. I live at 808 Farnham Pike. I have been riding dirt bikes, motorcycles, ATVs, snowmobiles throughout my entire life since I was like 10 years old, okay? Some of the stuff that's going on is between two neighbors, but you're penalizing everyone else who rides an ATV. I ride an ATV in my yard, no problem with the neighbors. Stay in my property, I ride around, fix the garden, bring something to the chicken coop, whatever it is. I don't go out on the road. I don't do wheelies. I don't run away from the police. I don't have any encounters with any other neighbors. But you're letting one situation dictate a whole new ordinance. I understand if there's a noise ordinance, then the police should be involved because that's a violation. And I know there are modifications you can do to ATVs and dirt bikes and everything else that makes them very loud and takes away the spark arresters on them, which could cause a fire in the woods. Instead of changing an ordinance, why don't we think of how do we keep these kids having fun, not breaking windows, not stealing cars, not doing drugs? Why don't we find a place that they can ride their ATV legally, okay? And the state would get money from a registration. There are plenty of places up in Maine where I go. There are thousands of acres, paper company land. That's where I do most of my ATV riding, is up in Maine. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. The kids are out in the woods. They're not hurting anybody. And you got to let the kids be kids. They got to experience. And if they're young kids like this, in a few years, they're going to be driving cars. What better experience for them to get behind the wheel, an ATV? So I would think long and hard, especially the ordinance where you had where they were going to have a boundary of 300 feet to the neighbor's house or whatever that was going to be. I only have a 450-foot frontage. I got 4.5 acres. That's where I ride my ATV. I don't ride it all day. I do a few little things. The kid, I'm sure, doesn't ride from 8 in the morning till 9 at night. Couldn't afford the gas. You know? So I think, you know, looking at one situation, you're gonna affect a lot of people. And I know the police have a job to do. If somebody's out on the road, yeah, go get them. I agree. They shouldn't be on the road. That's not what they're designed for. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Just so everybody's clear what the process is, we didn't vote on this. This didn't happen yet. There'll be a reading tonight. I'm gonna call for a public hearing on it, and then there'll be a vote after the public hearing. So it's not a done deal by any means. All right. So everybody can just attend the public hearing, and we'll take it from there. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Is there anybody else, before I close this open forum, is there anybody else that would like to speak? Okay, we're going to move on then. I'm going to move new business G. Discussion by council vote of other action on presentation of certificate of Rhode Island State accreditation to the police department. And I'm going to ask Chief Lafferty to come up.
Good evening, everyone.
Chief.
My name's Chief Tim Lafferty. We're here tonight because our police department has recently got reaccredited by the Rhode Island Police Accreditation Commission. The executive director is Christine Crocker, who's here today with our award, and Chief Richard Saintsever, who is going to have to say a few words tonight, is on the commission as well. I also want to introduce Captain Russell Ridge and Lieutenant Greg Landry. Since I was appointed chief of police, they've been very instrumental in my transition with the job descriptions and titles of what these officers do on a day-to-day basis. The captain took my position as prosecutor, evidence and records, and a few other things, and Greg Landry is in charge of training and accreditation. Captain Ridge was our accreditation officer, and their relationship and their work in the workplaces was phenomenal, and all the information and everything that had to be done for us to get reaccredited. Very proud of them, and I think they did a great job, and that's why I want them to receive the award tonight, because I just do what they say, and and we get it done. So at this time, I'd like to invite Chief Richard Saintsever to the podium to say a few words. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to recognize Chief Lafferty, the men and women of the North Smithfield Police Department. I'm going to do everything in my power to say North Smithfield Police Department, not Smithfield Police Department while I'm here. There is a difference. As the chair of the Rhode Island Police Accreditation Commission and working for an accredited agency myself, I know how difficult it is to not only attain accreditation, but to maintain accredited status. I know it requires two things. Number one, it requires commitment from the police chief all the way down to the most junior police department employee, which was quite evident here. Number two, it requires a dedicated and organized accreditation manager to keep the agency on task throughout the process. As I saw in reviewing the assessment report, it was extremely obvious that Lieutenant Landry did an excellent job guiding this agency toward its second reaccreditation. So on behalf of the RIPAC Commission, congratulations to Chief Lafferty, Lieutenant Landry, and the entire North Smithfield Police Department on attaining reaccredited status. I can tell you that the town of North Smithfield should be extremely proud of their police department. That being said, I'm going to ask Executive Director Christine Crocker to come forward to say a few words about the accreditation process, and then I'll present the certificate to Chief Lafferty.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here to speak on behalf of the North Smithfield Police Department. Having been a police officer myself for more than 23 years and seeing my agency through accreditation, I know the commitment and the work that goes into it. This is a small agency that works harder than most larger agencies, and they truly are committed to providing North Smithfield residents and those who visit the town with safety and the best services possible. This is their second reaccred, and I've been involved in all three accreditation cycles for this agency, and I've watched them work as best they can in an older building that is not optimal to the demands of law enforcement these days, particularly their cell block and evidence property, but they worked hard to find solutions and make sure they met the standard requirements. You should be very proud of them. This was the second agency in the state to attain the full accreditation aside from our career agencies. It was a little easier for them. Having been one of the smallest agencies, that says a lot, because today we still have a few agencies that are working towards attaining accreditation. So they are committed to you as residents of the town, as to law enforcement as a profession. So you really should be proud of them. You have one of the best law enforcement agencies in the entire state. So thank you. Chief, Captain, Lieutenant.
I'm going to read this very tiny print to the three of you. So I present this certificate to the North Smithfield Police Department, and it reads as follows. Rhode Island Police Accreditation Commission, be it hereby known that the North Smithfield Police Department has voluntarily complied with the required standards as set forth by the Commission and is hereby awarded this certificate of reaccreditation effective this 18th day of October 2021, and hereby shall be recognized as an accredited agency for a term of 3 years. Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd just like to say, I know firsthand the commitment it takes from the patrol, right from the newest patrolman to the chief of police, what it takes to maintain an accreditation. And more difficult than that is actually achieving the first accreditation. There's a lot of work involved, and great job by everybody. Okay, we're going to move on now. Discussion by council, vote or other action on payment of bills. Does anybody have anything on the inside the payment of the bills that they would like to discuss at this time? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the bills this week?
Mr. President,
Ms. Ellis?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the bills dated October 18th in the total amount of $3,075,570.60, of which $2,205,024.48 is ACH payments and $870,546.12 are invoices.
Thank you. That's a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. A discussion by council vote or other action on consent agenda. All items listed in this section are considered in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilor so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda. Would anybody like any items removed from the consent agenda at this time?
Mr. President, can I remove minutes of September 20th, please?
Okay, we're going to remove the minutes of September 20th. And I would also like to remove number 4, North Smithfield Fire Department monthly report. Anybody else want anything else removed? Can we have a motion to approve those items not removed from the consent agenda?
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda of the following items: Town Council minutes of September 27th and October 4th of 2021, Animal Control monthly report for September of 2021, North Smithfield Police Department monthly report for September of 2021, and North Smithfield Municipal Court monthly report for September 2021.
Thank you. That's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Ms. Alves, did you want to discuss the minutes?
Yeah, I just have a minor change. On the minutes of September 20th, on page 3 at the bottom, Scary Night, Spooky Spirits Food Trucks, it just says, Mr. Keene requested the town waive the fees. It's just, could you just correct the spelling of waive, please? Thanks, that's it.
Since we have the minutes out, I'd just like to say to Joanne, nice touch with the background.
Thank you.
Great job. Okay, I asked for the fire department. Let me get to it. Okay, if you look at the month of September 2021, North Smithfield Fire Department calls. And if you go down, and I do not mean to be opening a can of worms right now, but if you look at mutual aid received, 29, and that's even in red, because that's a problem. It's a problem that we require 29 times last month for outside agencies to come in for rescue calls. I received a call about, Ms. O'Hara, you were, she forwarded some information to me of a gentleman that wanted to speak to me about his mother that was, and it's no fault, this is not a slight at all on the our fire department, and it's not their fault at all, but they waited, what, 25 minutes or longer for a rescue to get there. I mean, if I had a heart issue, I'd make sure I had an AED in my house. All right, I'm just saying that's something that we should really be looking into in the near future, about getting an extra rescue on the road.
Well, if you look further down, though, we also provided 17 times.
We did.
We route our mutual aid as well, and so sometimes those things, they just conflict.
True.
We're covering for Blackstone, and then we get a call, and someone from Woonsocket comes, and it's just, that's part of the system.
Right, but it's still unfortunate that somebody has to wait over 25 minutes for
yeah.
a rescue call, you know?
And maybe manpower should be up to it also. When you don't have enough people to man the apparatus, something's not bad.
And I can only imagine how long 25 minutes felt when you were, someone really needed a rescue. Mrs. Zelinski?
Yeah, Mr. President, I've had a conversation with Chief Chartier, and they do have hopefully with the acceptance of council, a plan to add EMS rescue responders, one this year, and go home into it, one in future years, because they are woefully understaffed. And 25 minutes is life or death.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, so we'll do one at a time. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of September 20, September 2021? We have a motion to approve. As amended.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know who that was over there, but,
Must be puberty or something.
and then I'll entertain a motion. There were no changes were made onto the month of September Fire and Rescue Report.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we accept the monthly report for September of 2021 from the Fire and Rescue Service.
The motion, we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Mr. Vadney, did I hear Mr. Nordstrom's not going to be with us today? Was that correct?
No, he's not.
Okay.
He's not available today.
Is there anything that you would like to discuss on the old business for update on the Municipal Building Review Task Force?
No update from us. We're waiting for direction from this board.
Okay. Discussion by council vote or other action on update of Hallowell Review Committee. Mr. Corvo, do you have anything for us tonight?
I do, a couple things. We reviewed a couple of invoices last Hallowell meeting. We also went over the proposed RFQ process, and we are looking to get movement on that from town council to allow the town solicitor to review the RFQ. This would be the RFQ, or the RFP, in regards to doing several testings on the site. Is that correct? And then also, we're putting together an RFQ for the architectural process. Our hopes is to get an assessment of the property by December, January, and then move forward with the RFQ for the architectural designs. But prior to that, we need the solicitor to review that to make sure that the wording is proper.
By no means do I, I fully support, we gotta do something with Hallowell. Is that the proper process? Should we be going for an RFQ before we agree that we're gonna allocate certain money to the project, or?
Well, Mr. President and members of the council, I think when the issue rose, there were a couple issues. One was Hallowell Committee has no authority to get involved in that by virtue of the resolution that you established to create the Hallowell Committee. And secondly, obviously I work for the council, I don't work for the Hallowell Committee. So if the council decides in their interest that they want to go out to RFQ or RFP, that has to be a process that begins here, not, certainly the Hallowell Committee can say, we'd like you to look into something. I just didn't understand how the Hallowell was involved in an RFQ process or an RFP process when there's been no contracting or proposal even discussed at the council level or even sent to the Hallowell for consideration. That's just a question that came to my mind, but I think the process is in reverse. I think the Hallowell Committee, if they have some interest in some issue that's not in their purview, they should come before the council and ask, what you want them to do.
Yeah, so the chairman, Jeff Porter, ended up attending the last town council meeting and presented that we needed to get testing done at the Hallowell property and that they wanted to go out for an RFQ of that process to get quotes to see what hazardous materials needed to be remediated from the property. Regardless whether the property was going to be demolitioned or if some of the properties were going to be rehabbed and utilized for other ways. He had come to town council last meeting and had presented that, but obviously we want to make sure that the wording is properly worded for the RFQ. Okay. And that's where we were leaning on the solicitor for that. Well, that's where the committee was leaning on the solicitor.
Two different things, though. If you're looking for testing, you got to issue an RFP, request for proposals. But that should, like the solicitor said, it should be coming from us. So they come to us, request something, we give it to David, draw up an RFP, request for proposals. If the RFQ that you're talking about is way down the road. We haven't even seen the final report or any report on Hallowell. We don't even know where we're going. Why would we issue an RFQ for architectural services when we have an architectural firm on board doing the study for us? The RFQ was gonna come much later. There's no reason to engage anybody. We don't even know what we're doing yet with that process.
Correct, so
The
that,
RFP is okay, so we can find out, should they say, tear down these buildings, renovate these buildings? Asbestos is the issue that's there. There's no hiding around it. Whether you renovate or demolish, you gotta remediate the asbestos issue. So seeking a proposal for that, if they come to us and we go through that process, we can do that. The RFQ, though, getting an architectural firm on board right now is way, way ahead of the curve. Way ahead of the curve on this thing.
correct, so maybe the first step is to get the RFP on the environmental test that needs to get done. And we have a Hallowell meeting on Thursday, so I can bring that up to them at that point to get them to attend the next town council meeting.
All right.
President, if I could just weigh in, I really think that just so we're clear, the council decides an RFP needs to be done. They direct the purchasing agent to prepare an RFP, and the purchasing agent who is authorized by state law is your finance director. And the finance director prepares the RFP, and if she needs help, she calls me, and this is the way we work. And this is the administrative function of the executive branch. The legislative body just directs that function to be performed, and a volunteer board is not involved in that function at all. And if this council wants to expand the role of the Hallowell Committee, you need to revisit the resolution. I read it. It requires that they are supposed to be reviewing and making recommendations on alternative uses of the property. And it seems like, when I can see that getting in, and I appreciate it, the vice chairman or the chairman of Hallowell has got an engineering or a architectural background, so he's very familiar with it. Well-intentioned, but I just think it's the council directs the administration to execute the RFP, and it may not be an RFP. It may be in her discretion. She may go off the state master price agreement list, master price list, because that's the most effective way for a simple, and my understanding is this is like a $5,000 or $8,000 contract for asbestos. I don't think she would spend the time and energy to go out to RFP when she could just go on the state master price list, and there's about, I don't know, 35 pre-qualified asbestos engineers to perform that function. Why would you spend that time? I'm not speaking for her. It's her decision, her discretion. I say this so that we don't spend a lot of time, and you don't spend a lot of time focusing on drafting something or getting involved in a function that I just think is redundant when we have a process. And the process is set by state law. It's not something that I'm making up. I'm not telling you have to follow this process. That's what the law says.
Okay.
An RFP on this thing could be 30, 40 pages long. David, you reviewed it when the task force went out and did stuff. We worked with David and Cynthia to help him give a background and set it up, and they could find the back end of it. The same type of a thing, but it's a lengthy process, and in this case, yeah, for a small amount of money, when you're talking $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, it's worth it to do the whole thing. But for $5,000 to $8,000, you're probably better off looking at a master price agreement.
And
They're already qualified.
my last point, just so there's no confusion, don't confuse the Hallowell Committee with the Building Task Force Committee. They had specific roles with regard to the construction, contracting of that project. That's different than what the Hallowell's focus is. And I don't have a problem if the council wants to change the focus, but you need to look at that resolution if you want to change the role and responsibilities. Maybe you do it because you have volunteers that have a special experience and background. So I'm not trying to dissuade the council. We just need to follow what you directed them to do. And if it's up to the council, however you want to proceed.
Okay.
But
all right.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be.
I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
Procedure, to make sure we're on the right track. And
Like I said, with the meeting on, our next meeting on Thursday, I'm not looking to change anything with the, with the committee and what was drafted. I can bring that up to the chairman on Thursday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just another quick question since we're talking about Hallowell. Could you, we spoke earlier, could you talk about there might have been a little confusion in the Valley Breeze this week about a senior center as opposed to a community center?
Yes.
And I received a number of different calls from seniors saying, I thought we were getting a senior center. And personally, I think we should have a senior center, something special just for the seniors, but please, if you could clarify that.
Yeah, so I hadn't seen the article in the Valley Breeze. When I did see it, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I do think that it was mischaracterized as far as, labeling it as a community center. I think at best it should still be considered at this point the Hallowell project. In regards to having residents reach out, I as well got multiple calls from seniors saying that they were expecting that there was a senior center as well. I think regardless of the situation, overwhelmingly, seniors do want a senior center there. As far as the property itself, I think it is still a little bit fluid in the situation. We don't know, whether it's going to be one structure, multiple structures. I mean, at this point, we're just dealing with hopefully getting the final Weston and Sampson summary, hopefully sometime this week, hopefully tomorrow, so we can review it as a committee on Thursday. And then the goal is to have them present to town council the first or the second meeting in November at the latest. But yeah, just to reiterate, I do think that the Valley Breeze mischaracterized as far as what is going to happen at Hallowell. It's still, too early to go with the fact that it's just going to be a community center, which it's not. It's going to be inclusive for everybody, including the seniors.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I read that article and I said, did I miss something at the meeting?
Right.
I
No,
thought maybe I dozed off or something, and missed something, but.
Yeah, I know that there are plenty of seniors that really want to see a senior center there, and I don't disagree, because there's room to have a senior, it's a lot of room down there, so it can encompass a lot of different things. But thank you for the update. Okay, moving on. Where am I? Okay, discussion by council vote or other action on performance of air quality tests at the police station. Ms. Alves?
Thank you. I put this on the agenda because after our meeting on September 27th with the Municipal Review Task Force, there were some strong opinions of individuals that how unsafe the building is, and so I just thought it was important to maybe go ahead and have some air quality tests done at that police station, so that we know that the air quality is safe, so that way we're kind of, getting ahead of anything that could come forward saying that we knew the building was unsafe. So I would like to move forward with the company that did the Hallowell air quality testing, and see what they come back with, so that way we know that whether or not it is safe or it is unsafe. We owe it to our police, we owe it to the community, and that's something I'd like to go forward with.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Do we know what they're going to test for?
Well, I mean, mold, any kind of spores in the air, just to make sure it's safe for day-to-day use. People that are in there, I mean, there was some really strong comments made or opinions made, and I just think we owe it to the police and everyone who's in that building daily that they are safe. Whether it may not be the best-looking building, it may not really serve its purpose right now, but as long as they're safe, and I think we owe that to them. I believe if we maybe contact the trust, they may, help out with that, and maybe, go half with us on that. But I just think we owe it to the police, because there were some strong accusations made and opinions made of that building, and I just think we owe it to them and owe it to the town. And that way, if it's not safe, then we know that we have to move a little bit quicker than what we had anticipated. So that's just what I'm asking of the council.
Right, the chief indicated that he might be able to add to this discussion.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
he was still
because
here.
we did have it tested for asbestos when we began the process, and the building is clean, it's not airborne, as long as you don't disturb it, it's safe. that was an issue that we felt like you did, that we needed to address this when we had all those people in there, and the asbestos word came out, and everyone was like, oh no, and is it safe to be in the building? And so, yes, we did get a clean air samples on that. And the chief
So
actually got a lesson on how to remediate the issues if we do disturb it.
Yeah, I'd like to expound, I want to thank Mrs. Alves for recommending that, because most of my subordinate officers are complaining or coming with concerns to me as far as air quality, mold. So I've been a captain since 2012. I've been in charge of the station since that time. I was the facility manager. When we had our two architectural companies, RGB and Mayha, start this project with the bond, I walked every professional around that building, from the roof to the basement. So once the asbestos was discovered, after the bond was posted, we were told as a department that as long as you didn't disturb it, you could encase it. But to remediate it, they would have to do, I didn't know if we could even occupy our station if they remediated the asbestos. So with the air quality tests we had done as soon as we found out there was asbestos in the building, Emery Company came in and did the testing. So I walked around with the technician who did the air samples and inquired what was the air test. So he explained to me that what they do is they take an air sample over a period of time and they measure the particulates per million. And if it passes the particulates per million for OSHA, then the building has acceptable air quality. But they don't test the particles that they collect. As far as, I don't know if we ever had a mold test in the building. I know way back, I think Administrator Lowe was the administrator at the time. I think we did have some sort of testing. I can't remember. I was a patrolman at the time. But what I would like to see is the testing on the mold. I mean, we know we have some sort of, our ceiling tiles are black and green. We can't move anything or clean anything up because you can't disturb it. Our gym definitely has asbestos tile. They're 6x6. So the year that they were manufactured, they said they're asbestos. They said there wasn't a problem as long as it wasn't airborne. But the way to deal with that was to encase it in concrete. So what I would like to see, and there's other things that I brought up to the building committee, as far as testing of the police department, like the lead paint. I don't think there's ever been a lead abatement on the paint in the building. The asbestos we know is there, and I don't think we've got a clear-cut answer as far as any kind of dangerous mold in the basement. Now, I know more likely than not there is, because the intrusion of water through all the subterranean areas in the basement of the police department has, you know, some sort of water that runs into the building when there's a bad storm. So that's, you know, I thank you again, and I think there should be, you know, not only the air, but I do think the lead, the paint, now that we've acquired the NX side, probably should be abated. I mean, not abated, but tested. And I don't know the company. I know you mentioned the trust. I worked with Mr. Blackburn, who's in charge of safety at the trust. We actually got an award this year. We received, I think it was $500 for, we bought safety cones, so we won a grant from the trust this year. So I can contact him, and I was gonna contact him anyway and walk him through the building, because this, you know, he's in charge of safety of anything the trust insures, like handrails, sidewalks, and whatnot. So I thank you again, and I think that, and I know the last meeting you brought up some person, I don't know what organization, said, be careful what you look for, but you gotta look for it. You know, these are the men and women that work there. I mean, at this time, I have an VHC company coming in to fix the outside air exchange that has been non-existent. So that sucks fresh air in and blows the bad air out for the whole downstairs. So, you know, there's things that we have to, it's the cost of doing business because we house the public. So these are things that we have to do to keep running. Not to mention building any kind of a building. Keeping this one operational and safe, I think, is very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, the chief, my comments were that the EPA had told us this.
Yeah, I know, I forget, I didn't know what.
The EPA
yeah, I know
had
you
said-
didn't say it.
Yeah, the EPA had said, and if there's not an issue, don't go looking for one. But based on your comments, there's an issue that some of the men have issues, and we
Yes.
should investigate it. I'm not saying don't, I'm just saying the EPA had told us, that's why I wanted to wait for Ms. Alves to be here to talk about this. I didn't know what you were looking for. Like I say, the EPA, when we had the issues at NSES, they said, what created this issue? What, did you have complaints? And people said, no. What are you looking for then? You know what I mean? And a false negative came up, or a false positive, I guess, came up, which created a whole whirlwind of stuff. You know, where you had people saying, oh, there's mold on that wall. And the occupational health expert said, that's not mold. Oh, yeah, it is, we want it tested. And he tested it, and then he said to them, you know why I told you there's no mold on there? Mold will not grow on concrete. It's a known fact, it's science. And so these people were adamant about it. Mold will grow on wood, will grow on the ceiling tiles in different places, and until we get the water infiltration, till we get the water infiltration solved, we're not gonna get rid of that.
Yeah, the issue is we've had, you know, the roof leaks sometimes, we've had the drains, it's old-fashioned bell and spigot, that's come apart, and when it rains, we've had water from the regular snow and blizzard and issues. It's an old building, so, but, yeah, I definitely think we should move forward with that. And test whatever we can test for. Okay. And I would let the professionals lead the way on that, because, again, it is what it is. I mean, the technology and the testing of these companies nowadays, they'll get it right. I mean, it's not, they'll know if it's mold or not mold, right?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Alves, would you like to make a motion on this?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to request that Chief Lafferty reach out to the trust in regards to having an air quality test done at the police station, and then report back to us, or at least give us a list of vendors that we might be able to use so that we could go into a contract with them to have this testing done.
Chief, does that work for you?
It does. No, I'm sure there's a state list of vendors that do that kind of work.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, preferably, I'd like to work with the one we did with Hollowell, because their reporting was pretty thorough, so. But if there is another one that maybe the trust recommends more than that one, so be it, but just so that we can get that going, because regardless of where we go or how we go with the station, it's gonna take years, so we just need to make sure that everyone's safe and we can do the best we can there.
Thank you. We have a motion by Ms. Alves. We have a second by Mr. Vadney. Any further discussion on this subject? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Moving on to new business. Discussion by council vote or other action on award of bid for senior transportation. Ms. Monaghan.
Okay, so we received a grant for $10,912 for our senior transportation program. We've been running this program since 2017. We did not run it last year because of COVID. And it's been well received by the 4 locations that we service. We go to Deerfield Commons, the Meadows, Gateway, and Colonial Village. And what we do is 1 day a week, the service will be for each individual location. We'll pick them up at 10 o'clock in a van or a handicapped accessible vehicle, and we'll take them to either Walmart or Stop and Shop or Brigitto's, whatever they decide they want to do. And this goes for 4 days a week for 4 locations. And we'd like to start as soon as possible. The only bid that we received was from Valley Transportation, who we've used for the last 4 years. And we've been very happy with their service, and the residents have been happy. And this will run from whenever we get started until the end of June.
Just looking at their hourly rates,
Right.
does it look like the grant will cover it completely, or?
Every
Has it?
year, we usually get about $11,000, and we've never used all of it. So, and because in the winter, we don't do a lot of trips, so that sets us back. And then we actually last year had a chance to send them to the Work Museum, the residents from the Meadows. We were able to pay for their transportation there and for their tickets. So we do look at other things that we can use that grant money for, and we've always had enough.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions?
When they pick up, say like they pick up at Colonial, do they go to those 3 places, or do they just go to one place?
They
every
just
week?
go to one place.
One place, so the residents know on this Thursday, we're going to Bridgetto's or we're going to Walmart, and so they'll know which week they wanna go.
Right.
Okay.
So how do they have to call and make a reservation because of the different rates for the different vehicles, or?
I'm not really involved in that part. What happens is the transportation company talks to each individual location, finds out how many people they have coming and where they want to go, and then they'll decide from there which vehicle they need. Usually we use a minivan, the $40 an hour vehicle, but if there's somebody that has special needs, then we would go ahead and use a different vehicle for that.
So they basically make the arrangements themselves, right?
They do, and then I get a report every week saying how many people traveled from each location, because that's involved in the reporting for the state.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. President?
Ms. Alves?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the award bid of Valley Transportation Corporation for the contract for the senior transportation services, which would go into effect mid-October 2021 to June 2022, with the hourly rates as listed in their contract: $40 for a handicap accessible, $50 for a non-handicap accessible, I'm sorry, $60 for a handicap accessible, $50 for non-handicap accessible, and $40 for just a regular vehicle, as per the recommendation of the Assistant Town Planner.
Thank you. That's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion or comments? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to B, discussion by council, vote or other action on approval for artist rendering mural in council chambers. I asked for this to be placed on the agenda. If everybody can take a look around you, you can see the changes that are slowly starting to happen around here. Right behind me, the town seal, the pictures all on the wall. If you go up onto the second floor, there's pictures and artwork on the walls, and that is all thanks to our art committee. Tiffany, can you come on up? And the project here at Town Hall is fluid, right? It's going to continue to change as we will rotate art in and out of here. However, there is one thing mainly that will not change, and we're looking to put a mural right behind you. And there's an artist rendering of the mural right there on the wall. And if you look in your packets, there is a little more of a detail. And on the back, you can see a different version of it with the Stone Arch Bridge. We have located a very talented local artist that can do this at a very reasonable price. Tiffany, can you take it from here and then?
Sure. So thank you. I just want to tell you that we appreciate the opportunity to put art up on the walls. It was really nice. We had an open house on Saturday, and some of the people that came through said that they hadn't been in this building since they were actually learning here as students, and that it had changed very drastically. So to see some of the pictures that are the original photos, and then to see the way that the building is now, it was nice to see that there's color here. There's, the steel looks great behind everyone.
It does.
So that's good. But we wanted to really bring the community in, and I think one of the ways to do that is to have a really unique piece of art on the wall. So Benny is the artist that we were hoping to work with. He is from Woonsocket, and you probably have seen a lot of his art on some of the Woonsocket buildings as you drive through. He's incredibly talented and down to earth, which is really great. That sketch is actually one of the more basic sketches that's blown up. That will encompass the entire wall between the two columns. It will actually include the bridge, and he's really excited to do it. I think that it's really cool that we get to have a local artist rather than someone that's from far away. He actually was really excited. He took a tour with Christian, another person on the art committee, and they went to each and every building. They explained the history of the buildings, etc. So he really has a good feel for what represents North Smithfield. And I'm just really excited to see that. It was nice to see that through the events that we've been doing, everyone's just excited that there is more art in North Smithfield. So I think it would be fantastic. As I'm standing here, it's very large, so it will take some time, but shorter than what we thought. He said that he may think it would take about a week to do, given the town hall hours, regular hours. But I mean, I could definitely not do it in that time frame. But I think it's a really good opportunity for the town to show some of the historical sites that we have. And also for people, when they come in, people have been pointing, even the aerial view of the town, they've been pointing, oh, I know where that is, I know where that is. So for a mural to be up on that wall, people can do that as well.
And it'd be there forever. It'll be there for as long as.
Yep,
You know.
as long as it's possibly there.
Right, right.
And it's gonna be encased by woodwork that helps us too. So it's, special and I'm glad that we kept as much as we could until, do renovation.
Yeah, that's definitely one of our goals. So we wanted to make town hall relevant for those who have, maybe they were students here and then new people to come in too. That's why we installed one of the children's art superheroes, Be Kind, Be a Hero, upstairs. And we'd like to continue to do that by rotating different artists and different themes. We've actually already received multiple emails just from that day with people who want to display their art, everyone from North Smithfield. So it's nice to see that people are actually coming out wanting to chat, and it's just a really good opportunity for the community.
Now, there's one glitch, right? Benny needs supplies, and Benny's family likes to eat, so we got to pay Benny to do this.
It's a good way to put it.
So I would like to, now, before I get into what I'm going to request the council to approve, we did have another artist in mind, and he estimated between $5,000 and $7,000 for this. Benny is not even close to that, okay? So I would like to ask, I'm going to ask the council to approve a not to exceed, if we can draw up have the solicitor draw up a contract of a not to exceed $4,500. And I already spoke to the finance director, and with that money, Mr. Jesus, that money is, we do have that money in allocated, in an allocated fund.
This actually item on the agenda. It'll be part of the proposal for reservations, item E. So as part of that spreadsheet, we had put $4,900 for it, and if town council approves it, then we can move forward with that contract.
And it may seem a little high, but I assure you, in the art world, it is not a lot of money. And this is something that, like I said, will be on the walls of this town hall forever. And it'll be something that we can be proud of when we have people come in here for different. I'm going here for a council meeting, but there are a lot of other uses of these chambers, and I think it'll be something that we can all be proud of.
Absolutely.
So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. By the way, Tiffany is the chairperson of the art committee.
Love what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany.
If I could, Tiffany, we had a great turnout on Saturday. Lots of great conversation, a lot of oral histories were exchanged from the folks that came here. It was just a great day to be here. It's a good event. Thank you.
Thank you. And I encourage anybody to come and take a tour of the first and second floor of the building, and you can see all the artwork on the walls. And once again, that will be rotating. We have children's art up there, and we have adult art that was loaned to us. So that's all going to be on a rotating basis. So as new artists come along with this, we're going to put new art on the walls. So I would like to make a motion to ask Mr. Igliozzi to draw up a contract for Benny as to not to exceed $4,500 for the mural that will be on the wall in the council chambers.
Second.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion or questions?
Yeah, I just have one question. So are you saying that is going to be the cost, and it's also not going to exceed that?
It's not going to exceed that. So
Okay.
I personally had a conversation with Benny, and I told him that where we, you know, that it can't go, you know, that's it. And he even thought it could possibly come in less than that. But you're looking at 7 days, possibly, and, you know, a lot of supplies, a lot of time and detail goes into that. So, yeah, it's not going to exceed 4,500.
Okay.
It is. Yeah, and I've seen his work in Woonsocket on some of the wall, empty, you've seen it? And he does a great job. He's a very talented kid. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, and we have any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes, thank you, everybody. Appreciate that very much. Thank you, Tiffany. Okay, next I have, I asked for this to be on the agenda. Folks, we are going to be getting to your issue shortly. I don't know if they wanted to. Oh, okay. Next, we have the, I asked this to be put on the agenda, discussion by council vote of action on public hearing regarding police station's potential renovation or new building regarding a public hearing. I'm not looking to make, come up with dates right now, but I just want to discuss how we're going to do it. How many, if I'd like to get some input from the council on the number of public hearings and, you know, when, if Mr. Vadney, if we will work with the Building Review Committee, but we can maybe get a timeline on when we can get the process started and get the information out to the public.
I think the first thing before we have any public hearings is we need to know what direction we're going in. We need to make that decision. Are we going to renovate or are we going to build new? Once you know that, the process begins. Public hearings are public hearings. When we need to have them, we'll have them as many times as we need to have them.
I agree. I agree with that.
It's about educating the people, making sure that they understand the issue. It's a big issue. I've said it even before the election that this was going to be the biggest issue that this council will deal with in this term. It's going to be this decision. We need to make a decision though. Once we know where we're going, then the public hearings can start, so we can educate the people. Until we know that though, there's 4 options out there. One of them has already been taken off the table, doing nothing. It's already been taken off the table because the town's already borrowed the money. You're already in the process. You got $1.2 million that you can use to do what you can on that building, or you can renovate that building, or you can build a brand new building. You've heard my position. After tonight, I think more people should get on board with this thing. You've heard it from outsiders, outside of the group, outside of our town. We have a phenomenal police department. They're doing wonderful things. They're doing great things. You know what? We need to give them a building to continue to do that. That's the bottom line. We need to give them a building that they can do what they're doing better. They are doing, the chief gives us statistics all the time. How his numbers are higher than bigger forces in bigger communities, and he's got better numbers than they do. It's unbelievable.
Let's make a motion.
Well, no, we can't make the motion at this point, but we should set a date. We should get together and we should figure out how we're gonna make a decision on how to go, and which direction to go.
I asked it to be on the agenda this time, but this took its place,
Okay, we can put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
and then we'll decide.
Okay. Joanne, we got that?
Mr. President,
Ms. House?
I'm all up for having public hearings and having people voice their opinions or their needs or their wants, but I also think this is a voter's decision. It's not the town council's decision. So I think we need to come up with some suggestions and then maybe get something on the ballot. I don't think it's a town council decision. I mean, the people need to tell us what they want to spend, what they want to see in town. It's bigger than us. I don't agree with that. We should make that decision. I think that's a voter's decision, and.
So you'd like to have the public hearing before we make that decision as which direction to go?
Well, I definitely want the residents' input, but I don't think it's a decision that we should be making, saying, yes, we're gonna build a new station, or we're gonna go and put, $17 million into a building that
Right.
we're gonna renovate, or maybe we just want to do $1 million renovation. Like, I don't think that's our decision. I think we owe that to the taxpayers to make that decision, and to sit here and decide that what we're gonna do and not have any input from the taxpayers, I don't agree with that.
Well, we'll disagree then, because that's exactly what they put us here to do, is make a decision. Ultimately, the voters will decide what goes forward, but you can't, were you here when Mr. Nordstrom and I discussed the timeline? About getting to the,
Yeah, she was here.
About getting to the General Assembly and enabling legislation and all of that?
If it wasn't the last meeting, I wasn't here.
Trying to think of the.
No, that was at the joint meeting. That was
No, it was after the joint meeting that we discussed it,
All right, no, thank
in
you.
last meeting. And so, here we are at the end of October. In 12 months, a little more than 12 months, there's gonna be an election in the town. So now, if you wanna put this question to that point, we need to start now, because you need to get enabling legislation to the General Assembly, mid-April, so that, because they're done in June. You need bond counsel to weigh in and make sure that the language is right. You need to make sure that the language is right and get it on a question before August, I forget the date now off the top of my head. The middle of August, you've gotta get to the Secretary of State, so it's on the ballot in all of this, before the primary day, and there's a whole schedule of dates. But the biggest date is getting it to the General Assembly. So this board needs to decide which direction that we want now, based on that study that we commissioned, what we want to do with it. The recommendation from Tecton and from the task force was build a new station on that site. If the council doesn't want to go in that direction, you have another option. You have two other options. But we need to pick one of those options in order to go forward. I can't have a public hearing and answer people's questions without knowing which direction that we're going in, because they're each different, and they'll each end up with a different solution to it. So it's like when we build a school. We go through, we do all the legwork to it, and then ultimately the council says, okay, we agree with the study, we need to build a new school, like the middle school, we need to build a new school. They know what the price tag is, and then they start the process saying, okay, let's put it out there for the voters to decide. But ultimately, the council needs to make that direction in order to get the thing going. I can't, in the task force, can't do anything until we know what direction that this board wants to go in. We need to make that decision saying, we've read the report, we see the numbers, we agree, go forward, or we don't agree, don't go forward. It doesn't really matter to us. We just need a decision from the council on where to go with this. Then you can have public hearings, so that when people say, why aren't you doing this? We'll have an answer to it. Why aren't you doing this? Why are you looking at that? Did you look at this? Did you look at that? Did you look at the Hallowell site? We've looked at the Hallowell. We have answers to those questions. Tecton will be on board with us. But in order to get to that point, we need to make a decision. Re-engage Tecton to refine this stuff, because it's conceptual. It's a conceptual plan. And so you can refine it. We could direct them to refine it, to come in. You can have input into it. The public can. Have you looked at this? Why do you have this space? Why do you have that space? You can go through all of that process, but we need to make a decision for us in order to get to that point. That's why I'm saying we'll have all the public hearings that you want, because the bottom line is that's the whole thing, is you have to educate people so they understand. But we need to make a decision first.
Okay.
You've got about 6 months at the most in order to get to the point that we know where we're going with it.
Okay.
So, Mr. Solicitor, is there a way to have public hearings with not saying which direction we're going in, but just open it up to the public to get their opinion before we go into which direction we want to have?
You could do that, or maybe it sounds to me like what you might want to do, I'm trying to listen to what the council's saying, is you might want to have a public hearing that discusses potential ballot questions. Ballot question about building a new building at X amount of price. We haven't built, this is public hearings now, not the actual ballot questions, and that will give an opportunity for public to come in, get discussion, and maybe help you formulate which direction you want to vote to put a ballot question on the ballot. And ultimately, that's the decision, is assuming you want to get it on the ballot for the next election, It is, August is the deadline. If you, let's assume you had a public hearing, or several public hearings, and you discuss various options, about the ballot questions, and you come up with a ballot question to build a new police station, X amount of money. You put it on the ballot, if it passes, you do it. If it doesn't pass, then you know you're gonna have to put another ballot question on, maybe the following year or a special
Or you
election.
got $1 million to spend.
Or rehab at a different price. I don't know if they're the same price. I don't know enough about where those numbers are.
Well, you got that bond that has $1 million left in it. But it's not August, David, that we have to hit. We have to hit the date in April because we need to get enabling legislation from the General Assembly, who's done in June. Ballot question is actually formed from the Secretary of State in August. But you've got to get enabling legislation before you can do that. So that's why I'm saying we need to do something in the next month, 6 weeks, in order for us to get more work done to get to that question of enabling legislation.
I guess my advice would be, if you assume that your deadline is the next election, work back from there, figure out what you can do. If you don't think you can meet that date, then you're really talking about a special election for a ballot question, and if you feel you're under time pressure. Because this is the big question. If you can, I would try to focus on that date because you already have an election scheduled. It costs thousands of dollars to conduct a special election. So try to shoot for that November date. Work yourself back and say, all right, if that's the date, obviously the General Assembly does close up shop in June, July 1st. So you have to have the bond approval by the General Assembly. But really, the most important thing is I think the ballot question needs to be resolved. The council needs to wrestle with that, and if you need public input, you can do that. You could have a series of public meetings, do some advertisement, see what the people are thinking, if you feel that you need to do that. But it would be around the ballot question, and obviously the ballot question is going to be about the money being spent and how you're allocating and appropriating those funds. I hope that helps a little. But I understand the dilemma. This is a big issue.
You better decide that before April. It's doable. By my, it's easily doable for next November if the council chooses to go that way. The timeline isn't an issue, not in my mind. The timeline is, what are we doing? Because we need to know that in order to get enabling legislation.
So I think really we're just debating the order of the way we're going to do it. And so we'll put it on the agenda for next week, the next council meeting, and we'll come up with we'll give it some thought over the next, and we'll come up with if we're going to have a public hearing first, or we're going to do, we'll debate that next week.
Have we been able to put the study on the town's website?
I believe so, yeah.
Where is it?
Just confirm
It's
it's
on
on
the town
there.
website. I was assured it was there. I can go and check tomorrow. I read it when I put the flash drive in.
Yeah, can we just confirm, because I know a few people have contacted me and said they can't find it, so can we
That's
just
all I know it's on the website, but that's what I was wondering,
how to
where,
get there.
where can they find
All
it
right,
on the
I'll take care
website?
of it tomorrow.
That would be great, thank you.
All right.
I
Good.
did get contacted by Channel 10 too, they're interested, but I haven't given them any comment yet.
Maybe we'll have more to tell them after the next meeting. All right, so we're just going to roll that over till, Joanne, we're just going to put it on the
Well,
next
not the
agenda.
public hearing, I want
Mhm.
discussion vote or other action on what we're gonna do with the police station, not just public hearings.
Well, that's what we're debating right now, Ms. Badnage. Ms. Alves is suggesting that we reverse the order on that we first have the public hearing, then we decide which order, what we're gonna put on the ballot. So that's where the two of you differ, so I think that's what we'll discuss and vote on at the next meeting. Is that acceptable to everybody?
What's gonna be on the next meeting?
So the next meeting, we're just gonna have a discussion, vote, or other action on the direction forward for the, whether or not we're gonna do the public hearing prior, we're gonna do public hearings prior to the council deciding which direction we're gonna go, or we're first gonna decide which direction we're gonna go, and then have the public hearing. That's where the two of you differ, and that's what we'll debate at the next meeting, and We'll
Well,
vote
we
on
need
it.
to make sure that the wording is right so that we can take action on, if the majority of this council wants to go forward, we need to be able to take action on that, not just talk about whether we're gonna have public hearings first or second. So you might wanna have two items, and you wanna have, one is the decision first and the public, and so with that one, then you can talk about your public hearings.
Correct. And then possibly, if it ends up going that we are gonna hear from the public first, then we wouldn't even be voting on the second item, correct? You follow me? So what the argument, what the debate is that should we have the public hearing first and get public input before we decide what we're gonna put on the ballot? Or what you're saying is, should we, as a council, decide what's gonna be on the ballot and then get input from the public? It's just the order of things that we're just trying to iron out right now.
But you could have two items then, two items on the agenda.
Okay, we good? No, I'm sorry. I'd love to hear what you have to say, but it's not a public hearing, sorry. It's really all semantics, right? Everybody, we want to just, everybody wants. Okay. We're going to continue then. There were no action taken on that.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
Carl was kind enough to double check. It is on the Municipal Building Task Force page. Hey, Carl, you want to elaborate?
Yes, if you go on to the main town website, you go into boards and commissions, and you find the Municipal Building Task Force page. You click on that on the left-hand side. They're in 3 different parts on the left-hand side of the page.
Yeah, I can recall it was quite lengthy, and we had
Yes.
to break it up. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's there.
Well, you can't send it as a regular email.
No, that's why I had the flash. I read it on the flash drive, and then we upload, but it took 3 sections to get it
Okay.
up.
Is it too big to put on the main page, like when they come on, like there's all those little links that are on the front page when you go to the
I'm not an
homepage?
IT guru, Councilman, so I can't answer that. But if that's what you'd like us to look at, we can look at it tomorrow.
Might
But-
be helpful,
but
because
it's
then people,
there.
when they click on it, they're not, I mean, I don't, it's out there, but,
I mean, if you can recall the difficulty you guys had to get it on a flash drive to me, because you couldn't send it. It's hard, it may be a little difficult to find, so we can make it a little clearer how to get to it.
Or even just put it on the front page, how to get to it. That's
Yeah, actually, I'm doing that now.
Thank you.
Discussion by council, what other action on a proposed reservation for fiscal year 2021. Mr. Jesus? Let me back up, I did skip something. Discussion by council, what other action on penalties and tax adjustments? Mr. Jesus. Okay, does anybody have any questions, for Mr. Jesus? Do we have a motion?
Mr. President,
Ms. House?
I'd like to accept the tax abatement adjustments in the amount of $540.96 for the recommendation of the recommendation of the finance director.
That's a motion. Do we have a second?
second.
Roll call.
Yes.
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 Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to accept the tax adjustment in the amount of $331.32 per the recommendation of the finance director.
That's a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, now we're on E, right? Okay, discussion by council vote or other action on proposed reservation for fiscal year 2021.
Reclassification.
Mr. Jesus?
Yes, this is for reclassification. This is pre-audit. We approximately have a little over $2 million right now in surplus. It was mostly because of collections and some COVID dollars. Some items were not complete due to COVID or other reasons that we didn't receive product or the services weren't available. So I'm asking to reserve $1,442,000, $443.19 to reserve it for the products that were not done and that are listed in this list. I don't know if you wanted me to go through the whole thing or.
So I just have a couple questions. So some of these expenses, so like, for example, the legal, was that part of the 18,000 that we had used from the budget? So this is part of the stuff that has been sitting on the balance sheet that we're gonna use for this year, that we had saved on, that we already talked about?
Some of it, Councilwoman House, is during the budget process, remember we said we were gonna reserve some of the money so we wouldn't have the budget so high. Definitely legal was one of them. Redistricting for the Board of Kansas was definitely one of them. Professional services for assessing was one of them. There was quite a few of these. Road work was just, we just didn't have all the roads done that we wanted to, so we want to reserve that. And then there was other projects that were thought of or were in the budget, just didn't, because of the pandemic, it's very difficult to get everything, it was a very difficult year to get everything done that we had planned for. So we're just asking to reserve the funds.
So these are funds that have already been approved in
Correct.
prior years and doesn't affect anything else, right?
It does not affect anything. It's, our expenses are about 1.6 million under budget. So we're just asking for 104 to go towards the projects that we either wanted to or were already in the budget.
I just want to get
Yes.
the minutes that we're not increasing any expenses. It's just money that we've already had that's already been approved.
So that was my question. So this money was already reserved from previous budgets. What we're doing is restating that in this year, they were taking it from last year's budget, bringing it to this year, like road work. We know that $500,000 was, we didn't do road work last year. So we're moving it now to this year and adding it to the 600,000 that we put in the budget.
Correct.
So we have a bigger number.
Correct.
Like the six-wheel truck, we had money in the budget. We didn't buy the truck yet.
Actually, we did. We just haven't received it yet.
Okay.
So we have
So
to
it's-
reserve the money.
So it's
Yes.
it's
We
earmarked-
ordered it. We
It's
just
earmarked
haven't
for it
received
and everything.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, and the mower. A lot of this stuff, it's already been either ordered or it's in the process.
Or it's stuff that
Or
we're
it's
just,
just
it's
stuff that
just
we
stuff
need.
that we had in reserve, and and like Ms. Al said, we took some of it because we knew it was reserved, and so we lowered the budget amount and filled it with the reserve.
Correct.
Because it was already identified in that line item.
Mhm.
The one question that I have in all of this is the Maury Fire Tower and the cistern in Hallowell,
Right.
those three items that are down there.
Those, yeah.
I know that last year we reclassified funds that were sitting there and put them into that. Are we planning to do anything with those? Are we,
Go ahead.
If I may, Mr. President, address the council.
Yes, please.
Maui Fire Department, right now, we have $143,000 put aside for that. Pendergast is going out for an engineering study to check the structural integrity, the load. We have to consider ice and snow buildup up there. There are many antennas up there. This week we met with Rhode Island Emergency Management. They're looking to do some work up there. They may be able to help us out in these costs. I also had a conversation with Senator Reed, as you know, back in March, April. So we're trying to see how much funding we can get from the feds.
But we're pursuing it. That was the,
Yeah,
that's the
well-
answer that I was looking for. That
Yeah, we are pursuing it as of last week, we had a conversation with REMA. So that's going on. As far as the cistern, that's going to cost $146,000. That's 141, excuse me.
That's the cistern off of Elizabeth.
That's replacing the faulty cistern, so people understand this. We don't have cisterns in the rural neighborhoods, but as residential developments come online, that's part of our land development subdivision regulations requiring a cistern So it's going to be about $141,000, and we're roughly at 146. Little extra cost to carry soft costs, maybe some more engineering in there.
So we're not quite there yet on that one.
I'm sorry?
We're not quite there yet on that one.
Actually, this afternoon, I believe, Finance Director DeJesus had a conversation with the company that's going to try to acquire us the cistern. So, yeah, we're moving along. We're ready. We can get it there. Just for a little more background, you look at the sites, but by the time you get easements, by the time you get engineering, you've got very cost prohibitive. So we're going to probably actually reduce it. Yeah. Because I want to also consider that if we went to another site, we'd have to remediate the site that the current one is in. So cost effective wise, it's best just to go back where we were.
Pull it up and put another one in. Thank you. So you're still looking for a motion?
Mr. President?
I am.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed reservations for fiscal year 2021 as described by the Finance Director in the amount of $1,442,443.19.
Second?
Any further discussion or questions? Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, now we're finally, what you guys are waiting for. Discussion by council, vote or other action on amendment to Code of Ordinances, Chapter 8. This is a first reading. This is not a vote on whether or not this passes. This is just a first reading. Okay? Now, I know there's been a lot of questions as to, sir, you mentioned before, that, you use your ATV to do work around the property and things like that. So I'll read you the ordinance, and it does account for that type of thing, okay? So this is just the first reading. No person shall operate an off-road recreational vehicle within 300 feet of any abutting residential dwelling. Exceptions. The prohibitions defined above shall not be construed or enforced to prohibit the use of said vehicles for the following purposes: for use on the property of a commercial, farming, and/or agricultural operation. The operation of said vehicle for the purpose of loading and offloading the same from the location where it is regularly stored onto a trailer, vehicle, or other legal means of transportation to and from said location. The operation of said vehicle by law enforcement and emergency medical personnel, and the operation of said vehicles in the performance of general yard work. So it does account for what we're talking about using it for yard work and things like that. But this is the first reading. It doesn't mean that it can't change. It doesn't mean that it's going to pass. But I would like to bring up one thing, and it's not as a result of the petition, because as the administrator will attest to, I've been going back and forth on this for a couple of weeks now. When Mr. Soers was here, and he explained the situation from his point of view, I was upset on Mr. Soers' behalf, 100%. Okay, the story that what Mr. Soers told us, you couldn't help but feel bad for him and be upset about him. Had the ordinance been placed in front of us 2 weeks ago, I would have signed it. Okay, but that would have been a mistake. I'll tell you why. Because I would have been signing that ordinance on an emotional knee-jerk reaction to something that was said in the council chambers, and not as a result of careful study and public debate, okay, and careful consideration. I'm not saying I am against the ordinance by any means, but what I am saying is it would have been wrong to vote on any ordinance. It's a law. That's what we're basically saying. We should not vote on any law out of an emotional reaction to something. It should be carefully considered and publicly debated. One example is, an extreme example is whenever there's a catastrophe, especially man-made, the authorities, whether it's on the federal level, the state level, or local level, everybody feels, we got to make a law. Oh, something that's terrible that happened on the other side of the country. We got to make a law. That's an emotional reaction, and laws should be considered, given a lot more consideration and time and debate, most of all. So I'm not saying I'm against it, but I'm just saying that I want to hear the public. I want the public's input on this, both sides. And when I make a decision, it will be a result of an educated decision and not an emotional reaction. Okay? So that was just the first reading. I'm just explaining because I came across at the last meeting as, gun ho, let's go forward and let's go do this. And I would have done it, and that would have been wrong. Okay? So anyway, so this is just the first reading. We're going to reschedule a second reading. However, I would like to, before we do that, I would like to schedule a public hearing. So, and I would like that public hearing be advertised. Okay, so we can get input from everybody, from all sides. So you can bring in whoever, encourage whoever you want to have come in, and so can you. And I want to hear it all. I want to hear, and we all do. We want to hear what everybody has to say before we make a decision. Okay? So what are you thinking over there for a public hearing? Okay. Is that agreeable to everybody here? So we will schedule the public hearing, and then, I don't know, do you want to, what do you think? Should we have the vote on that at the same meeting, or we should give it at the following meeting after that? What are your thoughts?
We have some people right here. Can I ask a question?
Of course.
All right, what is the square footage of the property that you have up for sale?
On 29 acres, I do not have 300 feet of any side.
No, I don't listen, I have 100 by 100 lot, and you tell me, right?
My son can't ride on mine, I will not be able to ride on mine.
Is your property about the same thing also?
65,000 square feet. Acre and a half. Which, by the way, is what you have.
I have a quarter acre, just nothing you put.
No, I've got just.
You have just under.
I don't think so.
I think it's 29 acres, that's what they have.
All right, it's all irrelevant. We're not going to go there, okay? Okay.
You have more than
What's that?
he has more than what he's saying.
It's not, I don't know if it's really germane to,
It's just interesting.
I don't think it really matters. We're looking at an ordinance, not a specific.
Exactly.
It's not zoning to this particular lot.
and that's why I
We're
said
looking,
what I
this
said.
is a law that will affect everyone in town, whether you, me, the administrator, whatever.
Yeah, if I may, I still don't have the old classifications, whether it's REA 2 acres or more, or RU, pre-existing non-conforming lots. It does affect the town. If you're fortunate enough to be on REA, it's more of a lot for, this is going to be contentious. There are two noise type issues that we're dealing with now. So it's going to be an interesting next month.
I just had one question on the ordinance where it says, no person shall operate an off-road recreational vehicle within 300 feet of any abutting residential dwelling. By saying abutting, does that like kind of assume that it's just a landowner that's abutting? Because if someone is, I mean, they shouldn't be on the road anyway, but if they are on the road, they're gonna basically be on other people, they're gonna be within that range from people's property.
Again, Councilman, this was a draft ordinance. However, there are numerous types of ordinances throughout the country, and at the end of the day, council can, that's the whole purpose of a first reading, a public hearing, and a second reading. This can be modified, changed accordingly. You make a modified thing and make a totally different ordinance during the public hearing process that will interpret it the way you're saying, then you have a problem. We have to clarify that interpretation. That's why we would have a public hearings. I didn't think of that, but it's a good point.
I mean, they shouldn't be on the road anyway, but if they are, they're gonna be abutting everyone they drive by.
This seems to be directed at adjoining landowners. That's,
But it's open for interpretation, right?
so we have to clarify that point, even if you want to go forward in any future public hearing.
It's a law of unintended consequences whenever you make a resolution or a law, you change anything. There's always unintended consequences.
We have to really think about that.
The language that we were given is based on language in Methuen, Mass. That's where it comes from.
500 feet.
I don't know what the rest of the noise ordinance, we see a little piece of it, we didn't see the whole thing, so I think if we're gonna review this, we need to just look at a bigger picture as well. I mean, I'm not looking to change, to change everything, but we need to understand the whole piece of this thing, not just one little bit.
So I'd like to, Mr. President, with your permission, I would like to reiterate what I said at the last meeting. I am not condoning driving on utility lines that's private property, but most people do, and most are very respectful. They treat that, they go out there, they have fun. But I think it's when you come into proximity to someone else's property, especially on a Sunday. We have a noise ordinance on the day of Sunday. I was with my wife yesterday. I got a phone call about a noise. I had to call the police department and say, please go out and check it. Sunday is a day of quiet. So that's a given. But a lot of the ATV drivers are respectable. They know that if they do something, excuse my language, goofy, it's going to reflect negative on them. It's tough, ladies and gentlemen. It's tough to understand for the respected ATV riders. I'm going to go into I'm going to pontificate here. When I was a kid, I used to carry a pocket knife. I was a Boy Scout. Used to be able to go to school, whittle on the way to school, whittle on the way back, cut ropes, make swings in the woods. Can't do that now because of some things that was taken to extreme by others. So, yeah, it's going to be public hearing, Mr. President. We'll see what comes out of it. But I don't know how I would have reacted if it was, I bought my house to have quiet. And if that was buzzing around and I don't know. I would have a conversation with the parent and say, can you help us out here? Welcome to the neighborhood. Let me show you where you can go on a dirt bike and go ride it, But it's not going by my window because it would drive me absolutely insane. Yeah, well, I'll have to go out and look at it. I'm familiar with Mr. Soares' property. I've been out there. Yeah, maybe we can find out.
So can I go out there and see where your son rides and see the proximity and stuff? I would love to try and get an idea because I'm sure the way, no disrespect to your son, I'm sure the way your son drives it is a little bit different than this gentleman drives it. I mean, everyone drives it differently, right? Well, I'm assuming, but if he has a large parcel of land, he's going further with a smaller parcel of land, it's gonna echo, it's gonna, it's totally different than riding on a large.
Construction, listen to explosives for years, I understand about air concussion and everything else.
Okay.
See, this section is Slatersville. And I talked to somebody and came to me and says, I'm sorry, I said, that sounds like a good law because I hear it from people too. I think I kind of need to have one, but I don't. Well, it's kind of illegal to be on the utility lines, but I think the grid overlooks it. Travel, no trespassing. You're on your own. You get injured out there because they get the best lawyers in Rhode Island. So. I'm sorry.
As long as the riders respect the property.
And respect the people that are around them. You weren't here that day, but I can remember my wife, we used to left-hand road, she stopped to let some riders come across the utility line, and they threw the finger. So that doesn't endear you to the public. This was years ago, your son probably was near, maybe not even born. I remember coming home, I said, I can't believe it, I just let these guys cross over and they threw me the finger. I go, what can I say?
I think Mr. Vadney, what Mr. Vadney said was a great point, that we can't come across as we're passing an ordinance for one specific situation. Okay, that's why we want to hear from the public, get public input, and then we'll take it from there. Go ahead.
What about what?
Which are covered by the noise ordinance, technically.
But driving down the street, as long as it's full registered now,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah, Harley Davidsons do it.
As long as they're registered, as long as they're registered. Hmm? Licensed and registered.
My
You-
son rides mine, and he doesn't ride in the street, why? He can't.
Yeah.
The ATVs have to meet the national standards for automobile. It has to have a crash test on it. ATVs won't pass that. And they have to have directionals, headlights, and the operator has to be at least 16 and licensed.
In order for it to be on the street.
To be able to be on the street. In New Hampshire, you can ride, you can't go over 30 miles an hour. In Maine.
I know. It started it. I know.
She started it. You don't need directions, you can use hand signals like the old days.
Oh, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna come back for the public hearing. I hope you attend. Everybody attends, and we're not gonna debate this right now, but I encourage everybody to come back for the public hearing, which, Joanne, is when? December 1st. That's our first meeting in December, obviously. November. Thank you, Steve. November 1st. All right. So it's coming right up. We're moving along.
It's a process. First reading, public hearing, second reading. It's a
Right.
process.
Madam Clerk, can I just ask, on the agenda that you just, even though it says motorized vehicles, can you just kind of like put ATV somewhere, just so people are aware it's that specific topic? Or off-road? Yeah, so just so people know it's that topic.
We need to get this gentleman on a committee.
Thank you.
You know, it'd be too controversial.
The ATV committee?
Public, could be Public Safety Committee.
All right. Well, that was interesting. Does anybody else have anything they want to add, or we get ready to move on? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Because after the public hearing, we can consider it, take it all in, okay, review what was said, and then we can come back for a vote. Sometimes it just seems that when, and you were at the meeting, the school committee meeting recently, and I hate to single out the school committee, but if you have a public hearing and then you end up making a vote, and then it seems like they had the decision made before you guys even got to speak, and it just kind of leaves a sour taste in everybody's mouth. So, you were at that meeting, and
Yeah.
didn't it have that feeling that they had already decided?
It
you know?
did, yeah. So I
I'm
think
not saying that's the case, I'm just saying that's the perception that you get if you vote right after the public hearing. It's like, well, what do we have the public hearing for?
Yeah, so I think it's, so then then we'd be looking at a second meeting, the third Monday in November. Is that correct, 18th or 15th?
Okay. All right, everybody good?
Mr. President, may I share a little good news?
I like good news.
Administrative Assistant Revito texted me and said, the streaming looks and sounds amazing. Thank you, Carl. For those of you, for those of you who've been here, we've had some technical difficulties streaming. It's all being streamed over YouTube, and Carl's doing a great job. So Carl,
Let's move on to the final item on the agenda. Discussion by council vote or other action on Park Corporation road improvement proposal. This is for an authorization for the administrator to sign.
got some background, Mr. President?
Yes, please.
We have roughly 3.8 miles of road that we're contemplating. It's either going to require a full-depth reclamation or micro-milling. You've seen micro-milling on the roads where they don't take them all down, they just put narrow strips in. And replacement of pavement. We have roughly at this point $1,495,000. And Park Corporation is coming back with the amount of money that they, for their engineering study from 3 years ago, because we kind of got dormant, 2.5 years ago, we got dormant with COVID. So they're gonna be seeking a fee of $121,780, which is below the normal 10% of a job, estimated job work. So as a Director Pendergast, as well as my opinion that, well, you approved it back in August. The council approved, I'll give you the exact date. It was August, it was a meeting in August, forgive me, it'll hit me. August 16th is when it was approved. So we're just looking for authorization for me to sign it.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to have authorized.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we authorize the administrator to enter into a contract with Park Corporation to do engineering work for following roads: Sales Hill Road, Mechanic Street, Mountain Road, Pound Hill Road, Rainbow Lane, Roosevelt Avenue, Woonsocket Hill Road, High Point Drive, Circle Drive, Antietam Drive, Tanglewood Road, Winchester Avenue, Franklin Way, Lincoln Drive, and Adams Circle in the amount of $121,780.
That's a motion. Do we have a second on that? Second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 So hopefully we get results that we can begin in the spring.
Hope
That would
so.
be the goal.
Well, it all depends how much other work, drainage, sloping, there's a lot, we'll see. That's what the engineers will tell us.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? We are adjourned.